Hey, welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity, where in where we interview individuals who have broken into the cybersecurity field within the past 5 years, share their journey, share their tips and tricks, so that others looking to follow in their journey can use that for their inspirement. If you are following us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the notification button down below. That way you get notified. If you are following us on podcasts, share that podcast with anyone that's interested. And for those of you on LinkedIn, continue to follow us every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern live and engage with the conversation. Okay, so today we have Julian Richards, who interestingly comes from being a scripter back. I won't say how old he is. He's 25, but started as a scripter, and then now he's a pen tester. And he has a really interesting journey. And so I wanted to take the time to go through, have a chat with Julian, and see what sort of tips and tricks we can get for you guys and girls. Julian, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Julian. I'm here in Atlantic Canada. My time zone does not exist in the US, so that's a little bit of an interesting tidbit. I'm east of Maine, basically. So yeah, when we talk about scripting, we talk about Cold Fusion back in 1998, way back when. So that's why I call myself a scripter, because Cold Fusion at the time was not development. So I've been in the IT industry for 25 years or so, and always been interested in security. So I'm really happy for Chris to invite me over to his podcast. And one thing I just want to mention is, if you hear snoring, I've got a big dog behind me. It's not me, it's the dog.
Funny thing is, just as you said that, I heard my dog behind me snore as well, and hopefully the noise canceling takes all that out. But let's talk about your Cold Fusion days. What got you interested in scripting?
So I grew up in a household where we always had a computer, when that was not normal. No internet at the time or anything like that. And I was always interested in computers. So I was either going to be working in the environmental field or working in computers. And computers to me was more interesting. I went to community college. I didn't go to college. I went to community college, took a 2-year kind of development course. And my first job I landed was building small little web apps, like I said, back in 98 using Cold Fusion. So it was kind of the first job out of college, right?
Nice. So what did you do to prepare for Y2K? I mean, that was like the worst thing out back then, right?
You know what? I wasn't experienced enough to really get into the Y2K stuff. But I remember a lot of people behind me or around me saying, like, you could make so much money with the Y2K stuff. You're going to be millionaire. And I never even touched anything. I remember just waking up on January 1st, looking at the clock and going like, hey, the world didn't fall apart. That's awesome. You did a good job.
So let's continue along in your journey. Where'd you go from scripter?
So I got pretty bored with development, mostly because I wasn't good at it. And I got into networking after a couple of years, mostly because I wanted to play games with my buddies, right? And we didn't have the internet to play games over, so we would just network a bunch of computers together, and that was interesting to me, and that really caught my attention. So being focused on that, I started looking for some networking jobs, and I ended up working as a network admin. I mean, in small companies, if you're the IT guy, you're the IT guy. You're not just doing networking, right? So you're doing IT, you're doing system admin, you're touching a little bit of everything, managing some mail servers, some DNS servers, stuff like that. So what I didn't know at the time was I was building all those blocks that I needed to be in security, because I was touching a lot of different systems. I was touching a lot of different technology. So it was, at the time I didn't know, but I was actually doing exactly what I needed to do to do what I do today.
Yeah, and so you got experience to all these different areas, and how did that change? Like, what got you interested in cybersecurity, and how did you get from doing network admin over to coming in and growing to become a pen tester? Because I know that's the route everyone wants. How do I get to become a pen tester?
Yeah. So if we go back even before my first job, we're playing around in IRC channels, or during that time around 96, 98, the internet was coming into play, playing in the IRC channels and just chatting with people and seeing all the wars that were going on between all these hackers and rooms and, all that scene. I was way too afraid of authority to actually do any of that stuff. So I always had it in the back of my mind. I remember reading all the readmes and learning how to do these things. But at the time, there's no safe legal places to actually test your chops, right? I didn't have the skills to build my own lab, virtual machines that didn't exist at the time, didn't have the skills or money. So that was always in the back of my mind. So anytime I was working on systems, I knew how people would be able to subvert all these controls that we have in place. So security was always in the back of my mind.
Interesting. And so walk us through your career progression. And we could talk about the ski patrol in a bit.
Sure. So yeah, from system admin, network admin, I've worked at a whole bunch of different companies trying to find my spot. And I just had a hard time finding that spot until I started working for a company that did a lot of financial transactions. And it was right at the time when PCI started to be really on everybody's radar. And of course, doing financial transactions, PCI became something that was extremely important. So with a mindset in security, of course, I volunteered to help out with the PCI DSS stuff. And lo and behold, one part of PCI DSS is pen testing. So here I am, remembering all these cool hacking tricks that I learned in the past and all this stuff, and being able to actually apply it in a live environment and make money doing it. Of course, I volunteered to do that. and having that knowledge already and that interest, we somehow convinced the PCI auditor that I was an external person. I wasn't really. I was a third party doing the pen test, but so that was my first real taste of it. I think back about probably all the things that I missed, and that report there was nothing in it. I couldn't find anything, but it was my first real running scans and looking at stuff and looking at services. So that really picked my that really made me happy, and from there, it was a passion. It wasn't work. It was fun.
And how did you grow your skills? I mean, the difference in technology from 1998 to even 2015 is dramatic. And then 2015 on, like it goes so fast. Like, how do you keep up? How do you learn new skills? What do you do for that?
So that's the beauty of today, where we have all these spaces that we can play in now. We have these free resources online, or inexpensive sources that you can use. I mean, we all know those places. I'm not going to name them here, but if you want if you want to follow cybersecurity and anybody can contact me, and we can chat about these things more in specifics. But there's a lot of legal, safe places to go out online and test stuff. I'm always reading books. I'm always watching webinars. I'm always playing CTFs all over the place. It's something that, I work 40, 50 hours a week, sometimes more. And on the weekends, I'll just play around with some new techniques. So I'm always learning. And it's something, it's not because I need to, it's because it's interesting to me. Like, I'd rather do that than watch TV sometimes, though I do watch TV also.
So, is there a specific area that you specialize in? Because I know everyone always asks me, like, I want to get in cyber, I want to get in pen testing, and I go, where? Like, do you want to do networks? Do you want to do web apps? Do you want to do infrastructure? Do you want to do cloud? Like, all these different domains. Like, do you have a specialization, or are you more of a generalist?
I'm quite the generalist, simply because after doing that PCI gig with that company, I ended up getting into consulting. And in consulting, you take whatever the salespeople can sell, right? So they'll throw anything at you. I've tested everything from a small mom and pop shop with about 5 computers to police tasers to laptops in police cars to a set of POS devices across Canada, national stores, and testing their POS devices. So you get to touch a little bit of everything, and you need to kind of become a generalist. A lot of times I'll see what's coming up, or as when I was a consultant, I would see the projects that are coming up, and I would kind of focus my weekend studies and books that I was reading or whatever else on the technology that I was going to be testing. Now, one great story, at one point I was playing a little CTF, and one of the programs that I was testing, I noticed that it was going to be my pen test for the next week. So I was actually testing the actual web application, doing a CTF on that web application that the next week's pen test was going to be on. Within 6 hours, I was in because I knew exactly where the bugs were.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so for those coming in, like I know bug bounties and things like that weren't available back in the day. Is that something that you do for fun, or you do it all, or do you recommend folks start out there? Like, what are your thoughts for those coming behind you?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question, right? Because everybody's path is completely different. I haven't dabbled in a lot of bug bounty. In a lot of bug bounty projects. I basically, because I was a consultant, and people that hire you to do pen testing or even these bug bounty projects, they're so far along in their security that you're not going to find those fun, juicy, big bugs, right? They've already been caught. Because most of the time when you run a bug bounty project, you do have an internal pen test. The company will actually go in and do an external pen test, and then they open it up to the bug bounty to catch all the rest of the stuff. So it's harder to find those fun bugs. And as a consultant, I was doing a lot of that. So you get shut down quite a bit, and it kind of hits your ego, right? So when you go in and you have a known vulnerable machine that you can attack on the weekends to play around with, then you can actually run those exploits and you can find those things. So for me, now that I'm doing a lot less consulting, bug bounty projects are starting to become interesting to me again.
Let's talk about the dark side of doing pen testing, the reporting. I hate to overshadow it, but it's not covered a lot. Like, people don't talk about the amount of paperwork that you have to generate after one of those tests. How much do you generate on average, like, for any given project?
It's just a pretty normal pen test. Now, one thing to consider is that, the report is pretty long. It's going to be 30 to 50 pages, let's say. A lot of that starts to get pretty cookie cutter up to a certain point, because the methodology is always the same. And of course, the company or the auditors want to see that you're following actual methodologies. So, that's 3-4 pages right there. Your conclusion, you kind of use the same wording around it and everything else. So the template is there, but it's a lot of work. It actually is. There are some great projects out there to automate some of it. But at the end of the day, you still have to get your hands on the keyboard and actually write stuff. And it's funny you say that, because I have a presentation that I give, and one of the slides is the report, and the first thing on the slide says the dreaded question: when is the report coming in? Right? You've done all the fun stuff at that point.
And like, the other side of that is, you have a report, you have potentially a CISO or a CEO that's looking to read this. How do you drill down maybe the 50 things that you found into like the 3 or 4 things that they really need to work on, because those are like the big juicy parts, and then like prioritize the rest?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 people that are going to be reading your report, right? Like you said, the CISO, you have an executive summary. You are saying, we found 6 criticals. Well, now probably not 6 critical at this point, but 3 criticals, a couple highs, and then 14 lows, right? Severity issues. Most of the time I'll say, I was able to exploit some of these criticals, because some of the critical stuff that you found on there, I only have 5 to 10 days on a pen test, so I might not be able to have all the time that a black hat hacker might have. So I'm really going to focus on the stuff that I was able to exploit. I'm not going to ignore the stuff that I wasn't able to exploit, but I'm going to really focus on the stuff that I was able to exploit and show the impact in a business language, right? Not saying, I was able to change your algorithm on your JSON web token. CISO doesn't care. I was able to log into your application without a username or password. Boom. That's bad. He knows it's bad, and he or she knows it's bad. So you really show the impact. right?
Mhm.
This is people can get to your confidential information. People can get to the private information that's stored in your systems. So that's a bit how you talk to the CISO. Now, the other people that are going to be reading it is the managers. They want to know, they want to know how much time is it going to take to fix all of this. And then, you give them a list, a high level list of all the findings, and then you got to drill down into the actual details, because the people that are going to be fixing it want to know step by step what you were able to do. So you need to cater that report to all those people.
And then as you think about the impact, how do you consider things like compensating controls within the environment to really differentiate, like, yeah, this is a really high vulnerability for a CVE rating, but because your environment did all these things, it breaks down to a medium, considering all your compensating controls. Do you go into that level to really drill it down for them?
Sure. I mean, that's the difference. That's a little bit of a difference between a pen test and a red team engagement. A pen test, a lot of times I'll ask them, hey, listen, I want to test your web app. I don't want to test your WAF. I want to test your web app. So I'll find, critical findings inside of the web app and then say, okay, turn on the WAF. The WAF is a compensating control and I can't do anything with what I found internally. So you got to frame it in that sense. But at the same time, we all know that there are always some bypasses for that WAF. There are ways to bypass that WAF. So you want to know if there's a vulnerability inside of the web application itself. So yeah, controls are important. You got to frame that into it. But one of the disclaimers that I put in is that, listen, I'm looking at only technology. I'm not looking at people. I'm not looking at your processes. I'm not looking at your procedures. I'm looking only at your technology. So most of the time when I was a consultant, I would try to, upsell a risk assessment or something like that to look at policies and people. I don't want to use the word upsell, because honestly, it is something that's important, right? You can't only look at tech. You need to look at policy and people also.
Absolutely. I say, like, I summarize my career as I'm the translator between people and process with a fundamental understanding of the tech. And I bring someone like you in to, like, help translate the tech, and I'll help talk to the business. But you mentioned something that people are often confused, the difference between a pen test and a red team engagement. What's your definition of that?
So for me, a red team engagement is really you're testing the defense mechanism of the company. So you go in, nobody knows you're coming in, and you're trying to not to get caught, and you're trying to show that, hey, somebody can actually go in and get to your crown jewels, whether it's health information, financial information, intellectual property, but you know what the crown jewels are, you know what you're going after, and you try to get there in any way possible without getting caught. To me, that's a red team engagement. A pen test is looking for vulnerabilities inside of your system and looking to see if you can exploit it. So I'm not trying to be quiet. I'm going to be running that scan as fast as I can because I only have a few days, and I don't care if you catch me or not. Though a lot of times I'll go see the blue team, which is the defense people, and say, did you see me? Because if you didn't see me, then you have a problem. I was not trying to be quiet at all.
That's interesting that you mentioned it.
So a pen test engagement, you'll have a list of all the vulnerabilities and see how far you can get. With a red team engagement, you're focusing in on one thing, and there might be 20 ways to get there. You're not showing how to get there during those 20 ways. You're just trying to show I can get there.
Okay, that's well, you mentioned an interesting thing there, with talking to the blue team and making sure that they see you. Purple team engagements are now becoming the new in thing, because it's one thing to say, yeah, I broke in, and hand over the report to someone else, and they go, okay, well, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know how to tune it. I don't know how to see you. Like, but now sitting down with them and going, okay, this is what I'm doing. If you don't see this, try this, turn this on, configure the script. That way you could work together and truly help the organization mature from a security perspective, rather than going, oh, here are the 10 things that you're vulnerable on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Though you need to have somebody that is very knowledgeable in the defense side of things also to be able to do that. Some approaches that I've seen, which I like, is I'll take notes and say, okay, at 9 p.m. on Monday morning, I started my Nmap scan. It went on until 9:20, so that I can give that log to the people, and then they can go and see in their tools if they actually saw what I was doing. I like that approach. But yeah, like I said, most companies that actually have the money to pay for somebody to come in and do a pen test engagement, they probably have enough money invested in their security that they have people there that can sit down with you and understand what's going on. So you either need an attacker that knows defense, or a defense person inside of the company that sees and understands what you're doing, and understanding what they're trying to see. I like the approach. I like it a lot.
Okay. Let's talk about like some of your career progression. I mean, really going from a developer and then consulting. How did you figure out that you wanted to really specialize in pen testing? Was it just that first PCI assessment that was like, this is where my heart is, or after trying a little bit of everything, you decided to focus on pen testing?
Yeah, it took me a while to find it, but I think I knew at the back of my mind that that's really something that I wanted to do, but didn't really understand how to get there. Like I said, being a kid in IRC channel and seeing all these people that were doing all these cool things, crashing other people's servers and taking over stuff and whatnot, like that was cool to me. But I never saw a path to it. And when it showed up, it's almost like, Moses at the Red Sea. It's like, wow, now I see how I can get here. That was more of the effect that it had on me. And I like how you say developer, because I'm going to say developer again. Like I will never put that as something that I was. So again, like I said, there are some legal places today to practice those skills, and you can build a lab pretty cheaply now, and a lot of resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like the sea parted. Like, how is that regarding like applying for roles in Canada? We don't get too many Canadian guests, but we just happened to have Gabriella B last week that actually came from France to Canada for her role, and shared her story of an actress to a pen test as well. So what's the Canadian job market like? I mean, if you've worked at a consultant that probably has US businesses, like how do you see the job market being potentially different in Canada?
I think it's getting pretty homogenous around everywhere where you go now. Like, I try to keep my eyes on the industry and what's going on. There's a lot of roles available for cybersecurity people, and there's a lot of people applying for jobs, yet the roles are not getting filled, and people are still looking for jobs in cybersecurity. So I think if you follow a little bit on cybersecurity on LinkedIn, you'll see that there's a lot of talk around that. Around here, there's definitely a lot of people looking for good pen testers. Me personally, I was lucky. And we say hard work, perseverance, knowledge, all these things, but you have to have a little bit of luck also. Ended up meeting the right person. That person offered me a role right away with very little pen testing experience. I don't know if they were desperate or what, but I got in there and showed what I could do. Right. To me, it's my first engagement was amazing. Discovered a whole lot of stuff. I actually knew what I was doing, as opposed to attacking that PCI system at the time. And I just grew from there. A couple months later, I had my Oscp, started looking as a consultant, of course. Certs are king, right? So just added a whole bunch of certs, and ended up, there's always the imposter syndrome, but at some point I kind of gained confidence, thinking like, yeah, there's people that are way better than me at this, but I think I'm here now. I think I know what I'm doing. And that was, I'm sure for a lot of people that's the trigger, right? At some point you go like, you know what, I kind of know what I'm doing now.
I love that you mentioned that imposter syndrome, because I think all too often those struggling with getting a role, not getting the callbacks, that imposter syndrome kicks in. Like, am I really good enough? Is this the right industry for me? And I would say from my own experience, definitely continue to pursue through it, but figure out like what is it that parts the Red Sea for you, like which goal really lights you up. Because once you find that role that lights you up, you become passionate and confident, and that shines through like nothing else in an interview. A candidate that walks in and you're like, I own myself, and like, you want to hire me, great. You don't want to hire me, cool, I'll go talk to someone else. Like, that confidence is really great. So you mentioned that you got your OSCP. Many have said that's like one of the top challenges for pen testers in the industry. What was your OSCP path like?
3 months of hard work, 3 months of studying. But it is, see, it's funny you say that, because I talk to a lot of people in the industry that once they're in the industry and they do this work for a long time, they go like, no, it's an entry level cert. So, you get somebody saying like, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. And then you have people saying, no, that's entry level. That's the minimum you should know if you want to be a pen tester. I think both can be true, because pen testing and red teaming and doing this type of work is something that it can be very complicated, right? So what is an entry level cert in a company in a field that is really complicated is going to be a hard cert to get, right? I have friends that have their OSWE, I have friends that have their OSCE, and I consider those like way above and way harder to get. But is it harder than a Network Plus? Absolutely. I think it has a reputation and it's well earned. It's hard to get, but at some point, if you want to work for a company that does very, very high level pen testing work, then I want to agree that it is also an entry level. It's the basic of what you should know. I was lucky, somebody took a chance on me, and there's no way I had the skills to pass the OSCP when I first started doing pen testing.
Yeah, and that's why like I like to tell those looking to break in, looking to go down the pen testing route, that like that's not an entry level cert. Like, you have to have a fair amount of skills to get there. A couple of the cool things that you mentioned, and you just kind of flew by, that you did pen tests for like police cars. Like, what sort of interesting pen tests have you done throughout your career, if you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to name clients, right? But
Yeah.
I think the taser was a lot of fun, because anytime a taser fires, it sends logs out to a server somewhere. So, walking in, doing the background checks and everything else to actually have it, and the whole email chain was, okay, well, your handler, because I needed to have a handler, is going to be there on Monday. Can you make it? I couldn't make it on Monday. Finally, Tuesday. Finally, I walk in. The handler basically said, "There's a taser. There's a boardroom. Do what you want." Left the room and left me alone with the taser. So I'm looking at this thing going like, is this live? Am I going to shoot myself? There's another great story. I worked with, and it wasn't me, but there's also, social engineering is pretty big in pen testing also. And I worked with an individual, and I hope he's listening, because such a great guy. I gave him the job basically to try to break into a building while people were there during the workday, to just see if he could get to the network cabinets and plug something in or whatever it was. So he got prepared. He prepared a work order, everything. Billy said he pretended to be an electrician to show up. And as soon as he gets into the door, the electricity goes out. It was a planned outage. He didn't know. As soon as he got in the door, I swear to God, it was like on the second, like the right minute, as he walks in the electricity, he had the run of the place. He had his ladder with him. He was up in the ceiling. They gave him the Wi-Fi code. They gave him a place to sit down. That's one of my favorite stories. I mean, coincidence,
Nice.
right?
Nice. Wow, that's a great story to hear. And it looks like you have a commenter on YouTube, Missy Pie TV, that they have 6 years of physical pen testing experience.
Awesome.
Good times. Yeah, that's definitely a great story. Well, we're getting to the bottom of the hour, and I like to finish off all my sessions with, if you had to summarize your time here into one piece of sage advice for someone looking to follow in your footsteps, what would that be?
Sure. Network. All the opportunities that I've had in the past was not burning bridges with people that I've had issues with in the past for jobs or whatever else, and networking, meeting people. And when I say networking, I don't mean add 500 or 1,000 people to your LinkedIn list. I mean, talk to people. If it doesn't click, it doesn't click. Let it go. Find somebody that it clicks with, somebody that has you build a real connection with, and it grows from there. I've had all the opportunities that I've had was people taking chances on me because I reached out and we chatted and we sat down with coffee.
Perfect. Well, I love that because I'm also a big promoter of that. Go out, meet people, share experiences. We need that diverse set of thought, background, experience so that we can solve those complex problems of today and tomorrow. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the notification button. If you're following us on podcasts, subscribe and share with friends. We want lots of people listening. And then if you're on LinkedIn, connect with Julian and I. If you have questions, happy to answer. And thank you all very much for joining us today.